welcome to Malaysia.
Good morning, Roshan. It's great to be back.
Oh, it's great. What brings you to Malaysia this time?
Well, I'm here to do a series of seminars and workshops, primarily under the umbrella of Kaizen,
Okay.
for the boards and board members to develop their leadership skills, and then in other programs for different companies.
Fantastic. So, being here in Malaysia, what's your view of leadership in Malaysia?
Well, there's great leadership development going on in Malaysia.
Yep.
And the real strength here, if we look at the fundamentals of leadership, are the ability of leaders to create relationships. And you're in a multi-diverse culture here, which gives a lot of assets as well.
Yep.
The real thing for leaders in Malaysia to develop is to recognize that there's maybe too much adaptation to authority. That there has to be more of the assertiveness. And of course you have this wonderful characteristic of respect. That's fundamental.
Yep.
And saving face. But if you're going to be a vibrant, high-performing team, organization, you have to learn to deal with conflicts and deal with them in a more direct and straight way. And that's one of the areas I think that can be developed based on the strength of this fundamental connection that you have in Malaysia.
Okay. Is this the same if you compare Malaysia with other Asian economies or other Asian countries? Is that the fundamental issue also in the other economies? Or
no, I think it's slightly more here. Your strength of social bonding is so strong. And I think the other part is the respect that is strong. What has to happen, and maybe even a little less here, I would say, than some other Asian countries, is the ability to deal with conflict. And I see that changing dramatically.
Fantastic. You know, one of the things that's a big buzzword out there is this thing called talent management. What's your view of talent management?
Talent management is a fundamental success process in all organizations. I think we all like to work with talented people. I think organizations want and need talented people. And the interesting thing is talent can be developed. This is the amazing process. So I don't think you can even begin to talk about organizational effectiveness if you don't pay attention to talent development. And the research is showing there's going to be a dramatic shortage of truly talented leaders.
You know, there's many buzzwords: leadership development, talent management, all kinds of different learning organizations. Is there fundamental difference between all these things, or it's relatively the same thing? I
think some things overlap, and there are fundamental differences. For example, leadership development is really focused on how do leaders learn to manage themselves, and then how do they learn to influence others? The emotional intelligence, the social intelligence. True effective leadership is the ability to create that vision and then inspire people to come along with you, endure the pain, even the sacrifice, in order to get to a greater benefit. Talent development crosses a broad area, so that you are looking at maybe in a business area, in a leadership area, in a team area. It doesn't necessarily mean it's leadership in a direct way, but you are looking at how to develop these fundamental competencies, what can be categorized as talents, to take them to a higher level.
You know, we had many initiatives, Six Sigma and all these different things, Kaizen. Talent management seems to be a new little fad. Do you think this is really a fad, or this is something that's sustainable? Absolutely not.
I think it is sustainable because we now recognize talent can be developed. I mean, the good news is that you're not born with talent. Talent is something that you primarily learn. Now, that isn't to say there isn't some genetic or hereditary factor there. Even in sports, music, across the whole realm. But certainly in leadership, we know leaders are not born, they're made. And by how they're shaped in the way the mindset works, the way they focus, starting in families, with teachers in school, with the bosses, the mentors throughout. And then you take certain skills. If you want to be talented at finance, you want to be talented at project leadership, you start deciding or clearing where it is you want to develop those skills and focus. We know that you cannot be an expert in everything, but you have to select and choose where you want to be an expert.
Leveraging your strengths.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
Okay. Well, you know, one of the things fundamentally with smaller companies is their lack of the ability to fund a lot of talent management. The big boys, it's easy to build process, succession planning, systems, structures, and so on. You know, with some of the smaller companies and some of the limitations, what advice would you give them?
Number one, select the right person.
Okay.
Select talented people.
Yep.
And by this, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to have the talent already developed.
Yep.
It means they are ambitious in wanting to learn. They are playing to win. They take chances. They're not afraid of failure.
Yep.
You choose the right person. And then you start leveraging. How do we look for resources around where people can learn? I think the best learning in talent development does not occur in a classroom. It occurs in real life situations, forcing people into uncomfortable situations.
Right.
We can look at your own career.
Right.
Look at my career. We were forced into situations we didn't necessarily know what to do, but we had a secure base there. Somebody who had more confidence in us than we did in ourselves. And because of that, we were taken to a new level of high performance or a new level of effectiveness. So I think small companies have to look at where they can do this and then get smart and start collaborating, maybe even looking at how to cooperate with other organizations. And the talent development process in Malaysia is one of the strongest in the world. As a matter of fact, we're writing a case on how under Khazanah there is a desire to let people go from company to company, to trade talent, to develop it. So I think you have something very unique here in the sense that we want to develop people for the country, not just for themselves or for an organization.
I mean, many of the small guys will complain and say, hey, we can't attract that talent because of the fact that, you know, the big companies offers career, they offer this big opportunity, they've got all these wonderful processes in place, and so we really can't attract the talent into our organization. So, you know, step number one itself is going to be a challenge. How do we overcome that?
Well, I think there is some real reality to that. And what you have to do is look for those people who want to be in a small company. For those who want this smaller social bonding and where they can learn something. If there's always the opportunity to learn, I think there is opportunities in small companies. The big thing is don't get into the mindset of being a victim. Or as in my book, hostage at the table. Don't be a hostage of that. You leverage what the strength is and you find that strength. And there's always people out there that will want to learn something.
That's fair enough. You talk about talent management in Malaysia specifically, but let's talk about Asia in general. What's your view of talent management across Asia, and also what advice would you give companies in Asia that want to start investing into talent management?
Well, there are cycles of development, and I think what we see in the West is a kind of complacency setting in. Now, not in everybody. There's lots of people who still want to play to win. They're out there taking a chance. But we have more and more people who are, I think in the West, looking to just accept where they're at. In Asia, you still have this fundamental ambition. Look at the learning process. Look at the eagerness to do things. So that is an asset. I think the other, as the intellectual movement goes east, you see more and more everything from engineering to finance to broader skills being developed. And so I think there is a massive, massive movement east. And I think that the opportunities to learn are greater than ever. And the people are now there as secure bases within their own culture. I think in Asia you have to stop looking at the West as the model. And the financial crisis is probably just one example of how we'll see failed leadership at its deepest level, Russian. And again, looking for models within Asia, within that culture, within the identity of the nation and the region becomes very important.
Let's talk a bit about this financial crisis. I mean, how does leadership sort of play in this whole financial crisis that we see, or the meltdown in the world?
I think as we look at this and it unravels, it's going to be described as one of the most massive examples of failed corporate governance. The leaders of boards, the leaders of the organizations, the CEO, the management teams, the board chairman, who were not looking at what was going on. Now, we have this subprime rate problem and the swapping of mortgages and credits and all this, which is massive. But we haven't even tapped in yet, as I'm told, into the derivative disaster waiting to unfold. How is it boards could sit there with examples around the world of rogue traders and ignore what was going on? Even more phenomenal is the fact that CEOs did not understand what the young, energetic, over-risk-taking derivative processes were happening. And so I think when you see that the failed regulation, the failed looking at the leadership or the risk assessments there that were not paid attention to, and then finally the greed. I think it's going to come down to a simple failure to take into account a broader social system and pure either individual or organizational greed.